Please just make it easier. I'm doing literally the best that I can to get, I'm updating your grades daily. Y'all understand that. So it's crazy to have to go back a week and a half to put an assignment in that you should have done a week and a half ago. I still have people that have not taken the test from Wednesday. It's a test. You should take it on Wednesday. There was absolutely nothing else that you had to do on Wednesday in my class. Why are you not doing it? Y'all understand what I'm saying? Okay, make sure that you do that. All right. Quadratic formula, again, we're just going to review this, and the reason that we're reviewing it is because eventually you're going to have to know how to simplify square roots. You should already know how to do that, but we're going to do it anyway. The reason we use quadratic formula is because everything has a solution, but sometimes they may be imaginary. So solving by quadratic formula, it's not factorable, so you use quadratic formula to solve, because then it'll show you that your solutions are imaginary. What is imaginary? What's that mean?
Not there.
Yeah, but what is it? What does it look like? What's your answer look like?
Lowercase I.
Yes, that little curly cursive I. Does everybody remember those from math too? All right, and again, you didn't do a lot with them, but we're going to do a little bit more, okay? So we're going to start with the first one. If you can factor it, you want to factor it. Everything that I'm doing, I'm going to do by quadratic formula, but I will tell you at the end which ones you can factor and which ones you can't. I want you to factor first. Does everybody understand that? This problem, can I factor it? Do I have factors of -6 that'll add to 5? Yes, factor this one. Do not do this one quadratic formula, but I'm going to do it quadratic formula. And the reason I'm doing it quadratic formula is to show you how to reduce it, because you're going to have to know that real soon. Okay? So if we do it quadratic formula, we should remember quadratic formula is x equals, change the sign of the middle, so -b, plus or minus a big fat square root, b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. When you go see Miss Hoover today, anytime you see her, make her sing the song, okay? Tell her you learned quadratic formula. She'll be excited. She'll sing the song for you. Do it. It'll make her day. Somebody do it today, okay? Miss Burkhart will sing it to you too, if you walk over there. Very good. All right. So your A, B, and C comes from your numbers. Make sure you're in descending order, k squared, k, no k. And it comes from the numbers in front of those variables and the last number. So your A is a number in front of k squared. So this time it happens to be 1. Your B is the number in front of your middle term, which is 5. And your C is your last number. Always keep those signs with it. If there's not one of those, you just put a 0. So if like there was not a middle term, you would put a 0 for B. It's real simple. You can do everything we do. So when you get to your test and you're like, oh my God, I don't know if this can factor, I don't know what to do, you can use quadratic formula for everything, okay? And that's what I want to show you. So this one is factorable, and we know it is. It'd be a lot faster to factor, but you don't have to. So x equals -b means change the sign of b. So it's a +5, we're going to change it to -5. Inside the square root, b squared, so 5 squared. Minus 4, that's part of the formula, that's where the 4 comes from. Times a is 1. Times c is, make sure you write it as -6. All over 2 times a is 1. The 2 comes from the formula. All right, because we can use our calculators all the time, what I say is put this underneath the square root. Do not do the square root sign. Do not do the square root sign, just what's under it. So let me turn it down so you can see it. 5 squared minus 4 times 1 times -6. And what do we get? What do we get?
7. Well, square root.
Square root 49. Square root 49. Leave it like that. You're not wrong. I'm not ready to go there yet. All right. So only do what's underneath the square root. Don't type that square root into your calculator. Now, when we have a perfect square, we're going to have 2 real answers. Okay, 2 real answers. And they're most likely going to be whole numbers. They can be fractions. We'll see how that works. Okay. Realize if you get a 0 under there, You're only going to have one because the square root of 0 is 0. You can't add and subtract 0. You just do 1. So if you get a 0 under there, there's only one solution. Okay. If you get a negative under there, so this is where you know if it's imaginary or not. If you get a negative, then it becomes an imaginary. So it was not factorable, and you have an imaginary solution. Okay. So then we want to simplify. The square root of 49 just happens to be 7. And then you're splitting it into two answers because you have a plus 7 and a minus 7. So I do this. Negative 5 plus 7 divided by 2. Negative 5 minus 7 divided by 2. Negative 5 plus 7 is a positive 2. Divided by 2 gives us 1. Negative 5 minus 7 is negative 12 divided by 2, which gives us negative 6. Those are your answers. Now, anytime you come up with a really pretty answer like this, a whole number or a fraction, you could have factored, okay? You could have factored this. If you came up with like 1/2 or something like that, any answer that we came up with yesterday, you could have factored, all right? Look at your next one. The good thing about quadratic is you can't screw it up because if I don't pull out my GCF, like I see there's a GCF in this problem, but if I don't pull it out, it's not going to matter. Okay, so in your quadratic formula, you don't have to pull out the GCF. Okay, if it's a letter, you will. We won't work with those till later. But as far as a number, it'll be perfectly fine. And I'll show you what that looks like without taking the GCF out. So we have x equals, a is 2, b is negative 2, and c is negative 24. Again, it just makes the numbers bigger than what you normally have. If you want to take out the GCF, you absolutely can. It'll make your quadratic formula a little bit smaller. All right, so x equals negative b. What is negative b?
2.
2. Plus or minus, big fat square root sign. Now, inside the square root, for that b squared, I always use the positive because what happens when you square it?
It becomes positive.
It becomes positive anyway. So I always use a positive for this one so I don't screw it up in my calculator. So I just go ahead and change it. 2 squared minus 4 times a is 2, c is negative 24, all over 2 times a. Again, only do what's underneath the square root. So 2 squared minus 4 times negative 24.
Miss Jones. Miss Jones.
Yes.
Is the b under the square root that 2 squared? Is that supposed to be negative?
No, and I just explained that. I never put the negative under there because you guys will screw it up because this is what you'll do in your calculator. What happened? It's not right, is it? Because you guys, and I'm going to say this, but I don't mean it in a bad way. You'll be too lazy to put the parentheses around it. And then do your minus 4 times 2 times negative 24. So that's why I always keep it positive because it's going to turn positive anyway. So when we do that b inside, just go ahead and make it positive so you don't screw it up. That's all it is, okay? If you know you can do it like this and you're going to put the parentheses around it, I don't mind you keeping it negative. I'm just trying to keep you from making mistakes. And then 2 times 2 is 4. We're going to check that square root of 196. It is a whole number. When I get a whole number, what does that mean I could have done? I
Factored
could have factored it. Okay. We're going to split this up into 2 equations. We have a 2 plus 14 divided by 4 and a 2 minus 14 divided by 4. 2 plus 14 is 16. Divided by 4 is 4. 2 minus 14 is negative 12. divided by 4 is -3. All right, I want to move down to number 6. Number 6. What's wrong with this one?
12's on the other side.
So we need to move it over and we're going to subtract it. Can I take out a GCF on this one? Yeah, you have to. No, I'm gonna go ahead and do it so it'll make our numbers lower because 10 and 12 and 10, those are pretty big numbers, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and take my GCF out. And I get 5n squared plus 5n minus 6. But again, remember, you don't have to take it out. You don't have to. It'll simplify itself. So then you have your A, your B, and your C. What is my formula? X equals what?
-b plus or minus.
Okay, but what are my numbers? -5 plus or minus big fat square root of? Come on, guys.
5 to the second.
Thank you, Zoomers. -4 times
5.
times
-6.
-6. People in class on the bottom, 2 times 5. Thank you. Only do what's underneath the square root. So 5 squared minus 4 times 5 times -6. I got 145. Two times 5 is 10. I'm going to try the square root of 145, but what happens?
It's a bunch of decimals.
Yeah.
Isn't you supposed to keep it?
No, we don't keep it unless we can't simplify it. So you're not completely wrong, but we're not completely right either. So this is what you need to focus on today, okay? The other ones were really easy or whatever, but we need to figure out if we can simplify this anymore. So we need to find factors of 145. If any of them are repeat factors, we have to pull them out. So you guys know how to reduce, you should know how to reduce the square root. You've been doing it since Math 1. Okay, I teach it in Math 1, so I know you did it in Math 1. I know you've done it in Math 2 because you do quadratic formula again, and so then you do it again in Math 3. So all you're doing is finding your factors of 145. Guys, if you don't know those, guess them. I know that 145 is divisible by 5 because it ends in 5. So that's a factor. 29 is a factor. Do I have any more factors of 29? Does it break down? No. If it will not break down and I don't have double factors, then I just keep it. Okay, I keep it. The last thing that you will check in on this one, you don't have to. I call it my triangle of numbers. There's a 1 in front of the square root. There's always a 1 up there, okay? 5, 10, and 1 will not reduce. This is as good as this problem gets. It's over, okay? Everybody good? All right. I'm gonna try to get one that'll reduce, but I can't promise. I don't know what they look like. I'm just doing them on the fly. We're gonna move our 2 in over on number 7, and where does it go?
In the middle.
In the middle.
Perfect. There's no GCF. I don't have factors of 10 that'll add to -2. So this one's gonna look like the last one where it still keeps that square root, okay? This is not factorless. So X equals, what are my numbers? X equals
2.
2.
2 plus or minus big fat square root of,
2 to the second.
and remember I changed that sign so I don't screw it up. It's going to be positive anyway, so it doesn't matter. Minus 4 times
1.
times,
10.
perfect, all over 2 times 1. Go back to your calculator. If you can do it in your head, you can do it in your head. Minus 4 times 1 times 10 gives us negative 36. Ooh, negative 36. Remember how I told you it was not factorable? That's what's going to happen, y'all. That's what's going to happen. So then this is the part that you guys, again, should already know, but we have to review just because we have to review it, and you're going to need it later on. So what is the actual square root of 36? 6.
6.
Remember, we pull the I out anytime we have a negative square root. So because we saw the negative under the square root, that gives us our I. And then we divide by 2. So the only reason your square root went away is because 36 is a perfect square. Then I talked to you about my triangle of numbers. Right there they are. What are all of those numbers divisible by?
2.
So what's 2 divided by 2?
1.
1. Plus or minus 6 divided by 2? 3i. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Listen carefully because this is where people mess up. Y'all, I say this every year and they still mess up. You can get rid of the 1 on the bottom. Remember, if it's a whole number, I don't need to divide 1 underneath it, okay? So I don't need the divide 1. The 1 in front, I have to have. So the final answer on this one can be written as 1 plus or minus 3i, but you have to have the 1 in front. You don't have to have the 1 on the bottom. Number 6, what? Yeah, so you can't do anything because that 145 won't break down. If it could break down, you could possibly be able to do the triangle of numbers, but you can't do anything on that one. I'm hoping we get one that we can. I don't know. I don't know what they look like. Again, I'm doing it on the fly. All right. Let's look at number 8. So typically you guys will look at number 8. And again, I say the word lazy as I would be that way too, okay? So don't think I'm taking it like I'm not telling you guys are lazy. But typically in a math class, you guys would want to move that 4x squared because it's less work to move it than to move the other 2. Does that make sense? So you would say, oh, I could just move 4x squared, it'll be fine. Don't do that because you don't want that leading coefficient to be negative, okay? So leave the 4x squared. Now, if it were negative, absolutely get it to the other side and make it positive. So we always want our x squared positive. So I'm going to move everything to that side. So leave that 4x squared, add the 8x, and subtract the 21. You guys don't have to do work. You don't have to show that work. You're big enough now and you're old enough now that I don't need to see that. Okay. Do I have a GCF? No, so I don't want to do any more. I probably can't factor this. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to move on. I'm going to tell you can't factor it. X equals, what's going in my formula?
-8.
Negative 8. Plus or minus big fat square root. Come on, guys.
8 squared.
Minus,
4.
keep going. Times,
-4. Negative 21.
perfect. All over 2 times
4.
4. Perfect. Y'all can answer Sue in here. They won't hear you, but I can. Okay. I promise they can't hear you. So I'm going to simplify it over here so I can make sure I can have lots of room to reduce. Put your stuff in. 8 squared minus 4 times negative 21. And we get 400. Maybe you could have factored this one, huh? Over 2 times 4 is 8. Did everybody get that? 8 squared minus 4 times 4? Yes. What's your square root of 400?
20.
20.
20.
So this one actually could have been factored. So it must have had some big factors. 20 over 8. Make two equations. Negative 8 plus 20 over 8. And negative 8 minus 20 over 8. What is negative 8 plus 20?
12.
Divided by 8 is going to be an ugly fraction, but it still works. Both are divisible by 4. So 3/2. That's your first one. And then negative 28 divided by 8. Guys, if you can't reduce fractions, this sweet little calculator does it for you. Math, enter, enter. And it'll give it to you, negative 7 over 2. There you go. Any questions on this one? I want to find one. It's not working right. Let's go to number 9. What do I want to move on number 9? The 3 and 3. Perfect. So the way I move it is subtract them. So just change the sign. All right. So my question is this one factorable?
Yeah.
How do you know?
-2, -1.
You gotta pull out a GCF.
Is there a GCF?
No.
No, but there is a number in front. So how would I factor it if there's a number in front? Side divide. So we would try that. This is what I would suggest you do. Okay, try that. We get factors of -4. 2 times -2 is -4. That add to -3. Can I find those factors? Yes?
Yeah.
What are your factors of -4 that add to -3?
-4, 1.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and write that out. -4 and +1. I did slide, but now I have to do what? Divide by 2, perfect. 4 divided by 2 is?
2.
2. The factor is negative, so the answer is going to be?
Positive.
Perfect. The factor is +1/2. The answer is going to be?
Negative.
-1/2.
It's quicker. Factoring, right? So if you can factor, when you get to your quiz today, guys, when you get to your quiz, if you can factor it, please factor it, okay? Don't waste your time doing quadratic formula if you don't have to. Only do it when you have to. So let's look at the next one. And if we can factor it, we're going to factor it. And if not, then we'll do quadratic formula. But don't do more work than you have to. What do I need to move?
-8.
And it becomes a positive and it goes in the middle. So I don't have a GCF. Nothing will go into 9, 8, and 3. So I'm going to try this. So factors of -27 that add to 8. Now, if I'm not very good at my factors, remember I can put it in my calculator. -27 divide x. -27 divide x plus x. And I'm looking for a +8. See how it skipped over it from 6 to 11.5? This one's not factorable. Okay, so immediate when you know it's not factorable, now we got to do quadratic formula. Okay, so x equals, from right here, what's my formula? Tell me all my numbers.
-8 plus minus.
Big fat square root
8 squared.
minus,
4
keep on,
times 9 times -.
perfect, all over 2 times 9. work on the middle. 8 squared minus 4 times 9 times negative 3. And we get 172. That right there, that square root of 172 is not a perfect square. That's how you know it's not factorable. Okay, so it would not have been factorable. So then, again, square root 172 is some crazy number. So I need to see if it breaks down. So I know I do the smallest thing as possible, okay? So 172 is an even number, so I know it's divisible by 2. And that gives me 2 and 86. So I write down my 2, but then I keep going with my 86. I know 86 is also factorable by 2. But then it gives me 43, and I know that 43 is a prime number. Is everybody okay with that? This is how I like to reduce square roots. However you've been taught, if you like that way better, please use that way, and that's fine. This is how I teach it, okay? When you see a pair, that's what needs to come out. So we're going to bring out that 2. Technically, that is the square root of 4. Does everybody see that? What's the square root of 4? 2. So I'm bringing out the 2. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like now. Negative 8 plus or minus. I had a pair of 2s. I only bring 1 out because the square root of 4 is 2. I left a 43 uncircled. And then underneath I have 18. The very last step is to check the triangle of numbers. The square root is not touched anymore. Okay, once you reduce it, it's done. What are all of these divisible by?
2.
2. So I get negative 4 plus or minus. I do not need the 1 in front of the square root. If you put it, that is perfectly fine. I do not need it. And then 18 divided by 2 is 9. This is your final answer. An answer like this means you could not factor it. There's no way you could have factored this. All right, 11 and 12 and 14 and 15. They just have stuff in a crazy order, and they have repeat x squares. You just got to put them together. I'm going to move down to 19 and do one a little bit simpler, and then I'll do one of the other ones, okay? One of the other ones. I'm sorry, 13. I saw the 9, and that's why I read it that way. All right, what do I need to move on this?
The B's.
On 13, what do I need to move? The 9 and the 2B, right? So 2B goes in front. The 9 goes on the end, and their sign changes, and then I don't have this part anymore. Do I have factors of 9 that will add to 2? No. When I don't have factors, I have to do quadratic formula. And you know it's going to have an ugly square root, okay? X equals negative b, so negative 2, plus or minus the square root, b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Negative 2 plus or minus, underneath the square root, 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times 9. I don't normally put that 1 in, but I'm doing it for you guys. And I get negative 32. This is a good one to do. Negative 32 divided by 2. So we need to break down that 32, and we also have a negative, so that means our answer should have a what in it? An I, okay? So have that I. What are your factors of 32? 16 and 2. What are your factors of 16?
4.
Yes, if you can go ahead and do pairs, go ahead and do the pairs and don't break it down anymore. So 16 was 4 and 4. So I already see a pair of 4s. I have a negative 2 plus or minus. I had a pair of 4s, so that comes out. What did I not circle? A 2. I left something off. What did I leave off? That goes right behind the 4. And then divide by 2. Last step. triangle of numbers. They're all divisible by what?
2.
The negative one in front, you have to have plus or minus. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Keep that I square root of 2. Don't touch that. Don't touch that square root after you simplified it. And then it's over 1. I do not have to have that 1. So my final answer is negative 1 plus or minus 2i square root of 2. All right, so I'm not going to do the quadratic formula with the examples. I'm just going to move it over to show you how to move it over. I think you know how to do that, but I'm just going to remind you. So what I do is if I get something like 14, I find my littlest a squared, and that's the side that I move over, okay? Because I want my a to stay positive, a squared to stay positive. So which one is your littlest a squared on 14? The 6, right? So this is the side that I'm going to move. So I'm going to minus 6a squared. I'm going to add 8. And I'm going to move that 4a over. I only did these like this because they're like terms, okay? 11 minus 6. 5a squared. The 4a goes in the middle, but we change it to positive because we took it from the other side. And then what is negative 7 plus 8? 1. Always keep the a squared positive. All right, look at number 12. What do I move on this one?
A -6.
Yeah, so we're going to move this side over. So I'm going to add 6n squared. I'm going to subtract 4n, and I'm going to add 7. So I just changed the sign of the other side. That gives me 9n squared minus n plus 4. And then I do quadratic formula. Okay? Is everybody okay with moving it over? All right, so those of you on Zoom, I'm going to stop sharing, stop recording.